Welcome back, listeners, to another episode of The Snake Pit. I'm your host, Son of Bat, and tonight I'll be talking about Maniac Nurses Find Ecstasy, also known as simply just Maniac Nurses, but also known as Bloodsucking Freaks 2. This is a 1990 Belgian/Hungarian erotic action horror film written and directed by Leon Paul de Bruin under the pseudonym Harry M. Love, and it is distributed by Troma Entertainment. Funny enough, there's an executive producer credit from our friend Johan van Wolstein, and if you've seen some of the earlier episodes, you'd know he was the producer and director for Lucker the Necrophagus, 1986 Belgian splatter film I recommend you check out. Check out the review too if you want to learn more about it. But yeah, today's film, Maniac Nurses Find Ecstasy. I'm going to start off by saying this movie is not in any way related to or a sequel to Joel Reed's exploitation classic Bloodsucking Freaks. I don't know who or why they put that as a subtitle or as part of the marketing, because it has nothing to do with this movie. The only similarity or connection it has is they're both distributed by Troma. But in my opinion, this movie was more of like an Elsa type movie or a Women in Cages type movie. And yeah, essentially how I bought this movie was I was at a horror section in a video store, and it was funny because this specific store had like the porn movies on the left side and the horror movies on the right side. So I had a stack of horror DVDs. I'm getting ready to leave, and then out of the corner of my eye, I see like in the porn section there's a Troma movie and a Gene Roland movie. So I look at the Troma movie and I scan it quickly, and I'm like, shit, lesbians, guns, torture, hardcore pornography, I'm there. And then I look at the Gene Roland one and I'm like, Gene Roland, lesbian vampires, I'm there. So I get them, I put them in the stack, and I bought them, bring them home, put them in the shelf. I hadn't watched it until today. Basically what it came down to was I was kind of like, do I want to review a normal movie, a short movie, or a porn movie? And I picked the latter because I thought it would be funny, because the Caligula one was pretty fun to, review. And I got Erotic Nights of the Living Dead in the mail a few days ago. So I figured, why not get more used to reviewing this kind of stuff? And I took one look at the cover and I was like, hell yeah, this is going to be sick. I put it in, and yeah, that's like 70 minutes I'm never going to get back. Like I swear, like it was horrible. Like this movie honestly felt like all the in-between scenes in a porn movie, like it felt like, you know what I mean? It's like sex scene acting. Like it felt like all those in-between scenes, but really, really terrible. There was like little to no action in this movie, and like there was some okay gore, but most of it was like absolutely horrible. There was like nudity in it, but again, there was like no hardcore shit whatsoever. Like this was like, I don't even want to say it felt like a softcore porn movie, because it didn't even have that vibe to it. It just felt like an Elsa type movie, but a really bad one. Like Elsa, like for me, like I enjoy those movies because I know, like, they're not the pinnacle of top tier cinema, but Diane Thorne was a fucking babe. She got a killer rack. Those movies were wild and controversial, and like, they weren't great, but the acting was there. There was like a plot to it. There was a story, even though it was like trashy exploitation, it still had something going for it, And this just failed on all fronts. It felt like a really bad version of that. And I hate saying it because I love Troma. I love some of their even like more shitty movies I can find joy in. Like, stuff like fucking Killer Nerd or like fucking Tales from the Crapper. But this was horrible. Like this is, I think, one of the worst Troma movies I've ever seen. And finding out what they did behind the scenes to make and distribute this kind of just pisses me off, but I'll get more into that in a second. I'll just give a brief rundown of the plot for now. Essentially, in the forest, there is this fortress, and it's ran by a kind of commando mercenary squad of men-hating lesbian nurses. Some of them are like sisters with each other, but they're all led by this one woman who's conveniently named Elsa the Dominatrix. Now, Elsa's basically got this crew of top tier surgeons, and their whole goal is they lure men onto the compound and then they torture and kill them. Essentially, the plot, if you could call it that, kind of focuses on this newer girl inducted into the group named Sabrina, who is kind of like, from the get-go, you can tell she's not right in the head, because all she really seems to do is flick the bean, polish guns, and read comics that are insanely violent. Mind you, these comics look about as dog shit as the movie, but anyway, she reads the comics and like names start popping up on the screen like Caligula, Hitler, Stalin, Mao, Bundy, Manson, kind of to give you an idea that all she thinks about is like sex and violence, right? What results in the movie is a few people get killed here and there, and then essentially the group kind of like it implodes on itself, I guess, and they all pretty much kill each other, and then Sabrina kills the last few and walks off in her white lingerie into the sunset with a fucking Uzi. And that's the movie. Yeah, so like I said, this movie had no hardcore scenes whatsoever. It was really poorly acted. There was little to no legitimate action, in my personal opinion. I felt like it was very fucking bad. The gore, I mean, there was a couple cool scenes. Like there was one headshot in the fairly early on in the movie that was really fucking cool. But there was like two other headshots that were just dog shit. There was a part where a guy runs at a wire and it cuts him at the ankles, which looked cool at first until like basically you can kind of start seeing that it's just the guy like with his feet rolled into his pants and then two shoes with a bunch of blood coming out. And I don't know why, but this scene dragged on for a long time, and it was mostly the chick just standing there with a gun in his face while he's like going "Gah!" in pain on the ground. But it was just so long, and the longer you look at it, the more you're like, this looks horrible. There was a lot of really ugly text coming on the screen that was giving up kind of like a score counter. I don't know why it happened, but it happened in like near the end of the movie a couple times. The Ilsa in this movie, she was no Ilsa. Sure, she had the commando outfit. Sure, she had the dominatrix attitude, the whips, the fucking guns and shit. But like, she didn't have the tits. That's all I gotta say. And she didn't have the charisma either, like that Diane Thorne had. Again, it was kind of embarrassing to watch. Maybe it would have been better if it had all the triple X footage in it, but I don't fucking know where that is or what happened to it. Fucking sound like a degenerate. Where's my porn? But seriously, like, it just felt like all the filler in between scenes, and it was bad. Like, essentially, I did some reading on it, and I found out this, in fact, was actually a hardcore porn movie. But what happened is when Troma got their hands on it, they recut the shit out of it. They re-edited like the movie. I don't know how they did it, and they dubbed it, and they made it into this fucking mess. Like, and I assume they did some of the visual effects. Like there was a scene where a chick was doing a striptease, but it was completely obscured by like this spiral, like, you know, like trippy spiral thing going around. And I'm just like, like, God, this is horrible. The gun scenes were annoying too, because I did like when they loaded the guns and got their knives and stuff together. It reminded me of those like 80s and 90s VHS tapes of the bikini chicks just shooting off Tech 9s and stuff. And like, I thought that was cool, but it didn't really go anywhere. The gunfight scenes were dog shit. Like the melee combat or the wrestling or whatever you'd want to call it was also really bad. There was like no choreography, there was no believability to it. It looked horrible. Like, I don't know, man. Like, they were pinning each other and tits were coming out, but it wasn't even amusing. I mean, as fucked as that is to say, and like, who doesn't love a mud fight? But there was no mud to be seen. I will say this though, there was one cool part at the end of this really long, awkward fight where one of the chicks grabs a sharpened end stick and hoofs it right up the other girl's puss, which was pretty wild. Made a really boring scene slightly entertaining. And I don't know what to expect. I mean, again, this is supposed to be a porn flick, but like, come on. Like, come on, put some more effort in that shit. Like, you want to make a movie, like, with hardcore elements in it, do it. But, like, at least give a shit when you're doing it, because this was just a chore to sit through. I don't know how they managed to do it, but Troma literally turned semi-naked women with machine guns into one of the most boring fucking things I have ever seen. And, you know, hopefully one day someone finds the original X-rated footage and they put it back into this movie, and maybe it will make it more entertaining. But until then, this movie was just god awful and a big waste of my fucking time. I know it sounds like crazy, like how could adding that make it better? Well, like I said, this movie's kind of like an Ilsa She-Wolf of the SS type deal, and those movies, as far as I remember, I'd have to check them out again, like all three of them, they had a lot of boobage in them and a lot of torture, but they weren't like hardcore pornography, right? Like, they were softcore horror movies in a way. This one could have been different. They could have went that route, but went the full hardcore route, which I thought would have been interesting, but they didn't. There was a pretty funny line though where this gardener guy he gets like shot in the face by the Sabrina chick. He lands on a garden gnome, and they like bury him, but then they like take his tongue. And the only reason why you find this out is because the Ilsa chick is eating the food, and she's like, yes, it's his tongue, and I recommend it because he ate my pussy. And I thought that was fucking hilarious. But there was no hardcore scenes. There was no like, I don't know, like it didn't give me what it promised, and I think I'm just pissed off about that still. But if I were to rate this as a porn movie, this is a 1. Like, it just didn't have anything worth checking out. Like, I don't even know, maybe a total degenerate would find something with this, but it was not good. As a movie, I'm going to stick with the Elsa movies on this one, or any of the Women in Cages movies, or any of the Jess Franco movies, because this was just none of those. This was a piss poor version of those, and I'm really bummed out about that. Yeah, don't recommend this movie to anybody out there. Maybe if you're like me and you just want more Troma shit in your collection, get it for that reason, but really just, it was bad. It was a bad movie. I hope you guys enjoyed this episode. Don't forget to leave a like, comment, maybe subscribe. You get more videos like this in your feed. It was fun talking about it, even though it was a shit movie. Hope you guys enjoyed this episode, and have a good one. Peace.